Hey guys, it's Nick, and in this video, I want to talk about what Putin just said at a conference on Wednesday about how he thinks it is quite possible that crude oil can go to $100 a barrel. Now, at this conference, he also defended himself from the claim that Russia is using natural gas as a weapon to spike prices in Europe to get approval for their Nord Stream 2 pipeline quicker. And I don't want to say that Putin is watching my YouTube videos, but he basically went over the same talking points that I made in my last video on the European gas crisis. Now, seeing the price of oil, natural gas, coal spike all over the world and all these countries with energy crisis going on and inflation raging these days, I mean, unless you're a member of the Fed, you know that inflation is not transitory like they're saying. So I'm going to look at the best and worst assets historically during inflation. And if you think inflation is bad now, I'm going to show you the plan that they have for the US to make it much, much worse. So stay tuned. So in this article, Putin blasts accusations Russia is weaponizing natural gas as politically motivated blather. And he really shot them down pretty well here. So they say, here they say that Putin shot down accusations that Russia is weaponizing its supplies of natural gas in order to pressure the German regulators to quickly approve switching on the taps for the recently completed Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So he dismissed recent reports that the Kremlin was withholding gas supplies to Europe as politically motivated blather with nothing to support it. And he says even during the hardest parts of the Cold War, Russia regularly has fulfilled its contractual obligations and supplies gas to Europe. And if you haven't been following, Nord Stream 2 is their pipeline that runs along the same route of Nord Stream 1, which has been operating for years. This second pipeline has been attacked by the US mainly and some Western European countries because they don't want Russia to essentially hold Europe's energy needs hostage to Russian geopolitical whims. But Putin instead pointed to Europe's ongoing energy market hysteria and crisis as being fundamentally a result of the green transition coupled with corresponding low investment in the extraction industries. So he says there's nothing to support the idea that we use energy as a kind of weapon, but instead the reality is that Russia is busy expanding its supplies to Europe. And he said state-run Gazprom actually increased its natural gas flows to Europe by 15% over the first 9 months of this year. And he said Russia is ready to increase its supply if that's what Europe needs and asks for. He said higher gas prices in Europe are a consequence of a deficit of energy and not vice versa. And that's why we should not deal in blame shifting. This is what our partners are trying to do. And so this sums it up right here in a nutshell. You see, the problem does not consist in us. It consists in the European side because first, we know that the wind farms did not work during the summer because of the weather. Everyone knows that. Moreover, the Europeans did not pump enough gas into their underground gas facilities, and the supplies to Europe have decreased from other regions of the world. And on oil and OPEC Plus, he says they are doing everything to ensure that the oil market is completely stabilized. We do not allow sharp price spikes, and it is not in our interests. And when asked if oil could reach $100 a barrel, Putin said it is quite possible. And so, like they say here, Gazprom is actually fulfilling all of its current contractual obligations to the maximum extent possible under existing contracts. Nothing can be delivered beyond the contracts. How? For free? It is a matter of negotiating with Gazprom, he said. Now, if you agree with Putin that a big part of Europe's gas crisis is because of their green energy transition that is not panning out for them, wait till you see what's planned for America. So here's an article about the $150 trillion plan for net zero in America. And so Bank of America published this report covering the trans-warming world as a massive primer to today's net zero reality. Basically, they want to spend $150 trillion over the next 30 years to get us to net zero carbon emissions. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I remember when net zero only was $9.95 a month for the fastest dial-up surfing you can get, and you even got a free CD for it. But these days, net zero is going to cost you $5 trillion a year. And so here's a net zero cheat sheet. What is COP26? It's the 26th UN Climate Change Conference. What is net zero? Zero balance of greenhouse gases added and removed from the atmosphere. And here it says how and who will pay for it. And it says private and public sources. Yeah, I'm sure Bill Gates is going to be paying for this, right? Via a combination of corporate bond issuance. And there's already 3 trillion labeled bonds, ESG bonds, commercial bank balance sheet capacity, and of course, government debt, which means me and you. What is the economic impact? 1 to 3% inflation. And what they're saying here is this is on top of whatever normal inflation we're already having. This is going to add to it. So if you were worried about inflation and energy prices before, you should be really worried about it now after seeing that. So what can you do about that? Here's an article in Investors Business Daily saying Wells Fargo's best and worst assets to own when inflation strikes. So Wells Fargo looked at 15 major asset classes and calculated which ones did the best and worst during inflationary periods since 2000. Now, it would have been nice if they used a much longer period than only 21 years since 2000. And also, they don't tell you what are the inflationary periods during those 21 years that they consider to be inflationary. But anyway, here is the number one asset, oil. So it returned 41% during these inflationary periods. Emerging market stocks second at 18%, gold third at 16, cyclical stocks also tied at 16%. So worst are bonds, of course, and surprisingly value stocks, only 8%. So if you don't already own some oil stocks, you should definitely consider it. And if you want to buy some oil stocks of Russian oil stocks, which are not cutting back on exploration just to be green and that kind of thing, you can look at Gazprom, which is OGZPY. It has a market cap of $119 billion. It has a PE ratio of only 8 and a dividend of 3.35%. However, it is a little bit over 50% owned by the Russian government. So that may limit some of their profits as they sell natural gas to Russian citizens much cheaper than they do in the rest of the world. And you also have Lukoil, which is not government owned, and it's a Russian oil company. They have a PE ratio of 11.7 and a forward dividend yield of 3.41%. So guys, whether you agree with Putin that oil is going to $100 a barrel, or that inflation is just going to get a lot worse, especially with all the spending we're doing and the spending we're planning on doing for all this green energy stuff, then you might want to consider getting into investments that do really well in inflationary periods like oil, gold. As always, do your own research. I'm not recommending any stock or sector or investment. It's your money. You make your own decisions. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.